Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-hosts, including Jeff Mack and Shannon Lane from Newmark Knight Frank, Drew Hanlon, Pat Riley, USI, Frank Hennessy, Premier Planning, and Matthew Shapiro from Obermeyer. Jeffrey, can you give us a rundown on who we have on the air today, please?
Sure. We have a great show. Tiffany Wilson, President and CEO of the University City Science Center. Ben Drummond is the CEO of D2 Integrated Solutions. Eric Rubino, CEO of a company called Energage. And Christian Hoyt, President of PayUSA.
Let's get to know our first guest, Tiffany Wilson, President and CEO of the University City Science Center. Tiffany, what is the University City Science Center?
The Science Center was established in 1963 by a group of leading academic and research institutions as a neutral place for researchers and entrepreneurs to convene, collaborate, and make advances in science and technology.
And where are you from originally, and how many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
Ocean Springs, Mississippi. I'm the oldest of three girls.
The oldest of three girls. Jeffrey?
So Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Tell us about the community that you grew up in, Tiffany, and what effect did that have on you in your career?
So Ocean Springs, when I grew up, it's beautiful, historic little town on the Gulf Coast, 15,000 people, filled with water, oak trees, artists, and sailors. So I had the benefit of growing up in this small town with the parents from outside the country. My mother's from England. My dad was a Foreign Service brat.
Jeffrey?
And your father, we were talking earlier this week. He had a profound impression on you, and tell us about his reputation in the community.
He did. He was a small town lawyer. He passed away from cancer about 6 years ago, and it struck me at his memorial. The people there were everyone from the judges to the janitors in the courthouse.
What's that have to do with who you are nowadays? As the says here, you're the president and CEO of the University City Science Center.
So the beauty of the Science Center is we sit with...
No. What's your father? What was your dad's reputation in the community? What's that have to do with what you're doing as the president and CEO of the University City Science Center?
We convene a lot of different types of people to move technology forward. Mm-hmm. We bring scientists, engineers, business people, and government. So we've got to get along with a lot of different types of people to have an impact on the community.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Drew.
Yeah, Tiffany, you mentioned enjoying dance and ballet at a young age and throughout your youth. What was it about dance that you enjoyed?
I loved dance because I wasn't naturally inclined to be a good dancer, and I had to work hard at it. And I found through persistence and determination, I improved. And that game was fascinating to me.
And what do you bring, to the office every day from those old dance classes?
Persistence, determination, and grit. So I don't give up.
Mm-hmm. Matthew?
Tiffany, you said you're the oldest of three girls. What did that do to you growing up?
So I think there's the natural pecking order for the firstborn characteristics. The twist on that is my youngest sister was born with Down syndrome. And so that was an added layer of mama bearish that I bring to my job as CEO now as well, to really protect.
You said having the youngest sister with Down syndrome made you grow up quickly earlier. What did you mean by that when you told us that?
It did. I had the added responsibility to make sure that I was protecting her when we went to school.
Were you told to do that, or did you just assume that responsibility?
I just assumed that responsibility.
And what's that have to do with your job as president and CEO of the University City Science Center?
I'm very protective of my team.
Just wanted to make sure I understood. Frank?
Tiffany, when you think about your parents, would you say you're more like your mother or your father?
More like my father.
How so?
My father became a lawyer to make a living for his family and just to always be able to hang a shingle out. I studied business for that same reason, to have that entrepreneurial spirit, to be able to support myself.
So what did you learn from your father that you take with you? What would he say to you in your ear every day?
He would say to me, particularly before he died, he'd say to keep paddling. So
Shannon?
Tiffany, in the green room, you mentioned that your grandparents were always two people that you looked up to. Tell us more about that.
I did. They were born and raised in England. Came of modest means, and they're extremely hard workers until they died.
And how did they show you that work ethic?
My grandfather was always, even when he retired, was out in his workshop repairing things for neighbors and people. My grandmother worked until she was 90.
And what did you take from them with you into work every day?
So they were British, and they had the quintessential keep calm and carry on. So for better or worse, I have inherited that stoic, calm nature.
Pat?
You mentioned that you had took a lot of grit and determination to get through ballet. Did you have any specific instructors for ballet that pushed you extra hard?
There was only one. There is only one, Miss Donna. And she would build us up and bring us down just as quickly, and it made us stronger and better.
And what did you take anything away from her leadership style?
Don't make people cry.
Tiffany, you have 31 shareholders at the University City Science Center. How young were you when you had to deal with the diversity of opinion and figure out how to keep everybody on the same page?
So growing up in a family with so many cultural differences in a small town that was very homogenous gave me a platform that I didn't quite understand until I was older.
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
I didn't realize the influence of my upbringing with the various cultural exposures until I was in England at the age of 22. I was having dinner in a waffle shop with my sister who was studying there, and we looked at each other and realized where we came from. It all made sense.
What's all that stuff have to do with your being the president and CEO of the University City Science Center?
I have to interact with a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds and make sense of it all to have an impact.
Jeffrey?
So what are you most proud of that you've accomplished in your career, Tiffany?
What am I most proud of? The fact that I am now born and raised in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, have the privilege of serving as president and CEO of this amazing institution in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the path that it took to get there wasn't easy. And the path for the next 10 years isn't going to be easy, but it's going to be impactful.
Shannon?
Tiffany, in the green room, you mentioned that you were involved in track. What was your role in the track team?
I was a sprinter.
Tell us more about that and why sprinter over long distance.
So my body type, I was told, was better for long distance. When I was in elementary school, I got frustrated when I lost a relay race at field day. And so I would go in the backyard and sprint and sprint and sprint until I could beat everyone in the class. And that just happened to benefit me when I got to high school.
And how does that relate to what you're doing today at the University City Science Center?
You sprint and sprint and sprint until you nail it.
Sounds to me like you've got a real entrepreneurial spirit, and you'd probably be a pretty positive role model for the entrepreneurs that you're incubating at the Science Center. Am I mistaken about that?
I try to be positive. And that is a constant journey. I've not always been that way, but to look on the bright side, keep calm, carry on, keep paddling, and it all kind of works out in the end.
And your younger sister, what did she teach you about your role nowadays?
Patience.
So on one hand, you've got this persistence and you've got this competitive spirit. On the other hand, you've learned about patience toward yourself and also with others?
Yes. We play the long game.
What do you mean you play the long game?
As much as I love to sprint, and sometimes we have to do that, we really have to understand what the end goal is and work backwards from there.
Well, there's a lot of.
I'm sorry. What does jazz mean to you?
What does jazz mean to me in terms of the jazz dance?
Yeah, jazz dance, jazz.
Yeah. So ballet is the foundation on which great jazz dancers are made. So without the ballet foundation, right, but you can always tell which jazz dancers have had the ballet fundamentals and who haven't.
Gotcha.
So
What's the website address for the University City Science Center?
sciencecenter.org.
Let me have that one more time.
sciencecenter.org.
We've been speaking with Tiffany Wilson, who's the president and CEO of the University City Science Center here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. That's executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, we'll be back in a moment right after this quick break. Don't go away. You now can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your advisors. Yes, this radio and online social media exposure is free and quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors. Back here listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Ben Drummond, who's the CEO of D2 Integrated Solutions. Ben, what is D2 Integrated Solutions? What are you guys doing?
Sure. We're an IT managed service provider. So we specialize in small businesses, no verticals, and we enjoy taking on the objective of our clients' businesses, helping that with technology.
Where you from originally, and how many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
Sure. I grew up in Chalfont, and I'm the middle of a younger sister and an older brother.
Well, Chalfont's a suburb of Philadelphia. And what were you doing 8 to 14? What kind of stuff was going on?
I was playing a lot of sports, and I started working at that age, kind of doing a little bit of everything.
All right, Jeffrey.
So, Ben, tell us about mom and dad growing up, especially.
Sure. My mother was always helping out with elderly. She was always working with activities and at different nursing homes or assisted living homes, and just had a true passion for just helping people that were, older. And my father was a business owner and started the company that I am with now, and just kind of always saw him having success with the business.
I know you work with your dad, but are you more like your mom or your dad?
I would say I'm more like my father, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Drew.
Yeah, Ben, I know wrestling was impactful to you as a youth. Can you tell us a little about that experience and how it impacted you?
Yeah, absolutely. Wrestling really just taught me grit and hard work. It's the type of sport where your success is almost directly related to how much effort and persistence you put into it. So that it taught me a lot about just kind of biting your tongue and working,
And what happened your senior year with wrestling?
So my senior year, when I was in high school, I was the captain of the team, and I quit the wrestling team. And to this day, it's a big thing that I wish if I could make the decision again, I wouldn't do it. I don't want to say that I regret it because I learned a lot from it. I made that decision because at the time I was just a troubled high school kid getting into trouble a lot, and just decided to do that.
Mm-hmm. Pat?
What was your relationship like growing up with your brother and sister?
Yeah, we had a good relationship growing up. My brother and I, we now work together in the business, but growing up, we, like sports together, we played video games together, kind of had a nice brotherly relationship.
And how does that affect the team today at D2 working with your brother and dad?
I think it translates directly into just the culture of our company, because we like all of our team to feel like it's one small family, and I think it's supported by the fact that sometimes it's literally family. Mm-hmm. But there's also people at the company that don't have the same last name as me, but I kind of view them as family.
Frank? Oh, you're on mute, Frank.
Sorry, Ben, you mentioned you started working at age 14. Where'd you work?
I worked at Johnny Be Good Ice Cream Parlor in Ocean City, New Jersey, down the shore.
For how long?
I worked there for 4 years.
4 years. What did you do differently than any other employee there being 14 for 4 years?
So my job was the name of the title was backup. And I was basically like, that meant do this, do that, do this, do that. And I always liked to do more than just that. So I wasn't really supposed to be into scooping ice cream and helping out with that. But frequently when we got busy, I would kind of put on multiple hats and do as much as I could.
So you found things to do. How does that translate to what you do now, D2?
It's a necessary part of what I do now, where I might have, one of 10 different things going on at a time. And whether it's internally or externally, you just got to learn how to prioritize and figure out what's the most important one to be doing right there.
Shannon?
And how young were you when you first started tinkering with technology?
I really first started getting into technology when I started working at D2. So it wasn't like a lifelong passion of computers or IT. It was more so once I started, getting a little bit of experience with it, I started diving in more and more.
So Ben, if tech wasn't really your thing, I'm curious, what do you bring to D2?
I have a passion for seeing what technology can do for the business. So one of the things I always like to, remind myself of is the technology is only as good as the impact it creates for whatever purpose it's meant for. You could have something that's super high tech and it might be very complex, but if it doesn't achieve the purpose of what it was built for, or it doesn't help people, then it's, what good does it have? So we try to carry that philosophy in how we work and who we work with.
You bring the business to tech.
Right.
Matthew?
Ben, if we go back to 8 to 14 and I ask you about kind of your best couple of friends, 3, 2, 3, 4, whatever number it is, how would they describe you?
Yeah, I think looking back on that, it depends on which friends, because I was always friends with different groups of people and I kind of had best friends within each of those groups. But I think a couple common themes were that I like to really have close-knit relationships with those friends, even at a young age. And I would say that some of them might have described me as hardworking, the ones that I had from wrestling.
And you said in the green room that kind of the quality mattered more to you than quantity. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed just getting to know people as thoroughly as possible, even if that means you can only get to know one person as thoroughly as possible rather than 10 people at a surface level. So I think that started at that young age, just having some friends that I was just very close with.
And you've described your business as, when you've talked about it, how you like getting to know the clients and how important that is. Are those things similar?
Yeah, I would say it's absolutely similar. We try to kind of position ourselves as part of our clients' companies as a true partner.
But it's not really positioning yourselves. It's really who you are, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. That's a good point.
Drew?
Yeah, I'm curious, to go on that theme, where was the first time that you realized how important customer service was and delivering?
I was really at the ice cream parlor. I always remember there'd be a story of a little kid dropped his cone, sprinkles go everywhere, makes a mess. He comes back in crying. And I remember my boss, the owner of the parlor, just always not only made the kid happy, but made his parents happy, made sure he would come back next summer. And that taught me a lot about just, doing the right thing for the customer no matter what.
Do you get feedback from the clients you serve today?
Yeah.
And what's that mean? What's that mean to you if they tell you, hey, man, you really knocked it out of the park. Thank you.
It means the world. It means everything, because if we're not doing the right thing and succeeding for our customer, like I said about the technology, if the technology is super technical, but it's not helping anybody, then there's no point. I kind of look at our company that way too. Like if we're not doing right for the customer, doing a good job and causing an impact, then, what's the point of IT?
Mm-hmm. I understand that you were going to college and decided to come to work in the business. Your father had started the business and you never went back to school. And you told us earlier, I think I remember you telling us that it's because you like learning by doing. And we also understand that you like juggling a lot of stuff, which is what you were doing at the ice cream parlor. So your nature's really to get your hands really dirty, understanding what businesses need and then making sure that they're getting it?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I like to just kind of dive in to see the impact of why something is truly needed, not just at the surface level, but really understand what's the domino effect. If we put, this piece of technology in place, what's that going to do to these departments and their customers? And kind of the only way I get to do that is by diving into it as deeply as I can.
I guess that's one of the reasons you tend to have long-term clients, because you're serving them well. You're really getting to know what their needs are, and they're really serving their needs. Your father started this business, correct?
Yep. My father started the business when the year I was born.
And your brother and you and your father are all working in the same business.
Yep.
Uh-huh. Yep. Who's the boss?
I would say that I am.
What would your father and your brother say?
They would say that I am as well.
Uh-huh. How do you handle that? You tell them what to do and scream and yell at them?
No, I try to get them to see my vision and try to sell them on my vision so that we can all work towards that together.
So you're all about building a collaborative kind of community, aren't you?
Yeah. Yep.
That's part of like getting to know what your clients need. Your nature isn't to go tell. Your nature is to try to get the ingest information, ask the right questions, right, so that you can lead in the right direction. What's the website address of this organization known as D2 Integrated Solutions?
It's d2integratedsolutions.com.
We've been speaking with Ben Drummond, CEO of D2 Integrated Solutions, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment right after this break. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Eric Rubino, CEO of Energage. What is Energage, Eric?
Good morning, Herb. Energage is a $20 million HR tech organization, primarily focused on employer recognition through a top workplace, regional and national program, as well as licensing our unified SaaS platform, which covers employee engagement, employee culture, and employer branding.
And tell me, where you're from originally and how many brothers and sisters?
Small town in New Jersey, blue collar type community, primarily like roofers, pipe fitters, construction type. And I have one older sister, 2 years older than me.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey?
So as the CEO of this company, you have to organize and orchestrate everything. How young were you, Eric, when you started organizing the other kids in your community?
Ever since I can remember, Jeff, really just felt like the sports roles that I had were natural leadership positions, point guard and basketball, pitching and baseball, and just always was challenging my friends to think a little bit differently than they.
How would they describe you at age 16, 14 or 16? How would your friends describe you back then?
True, dedicated, reliable friend, and a leader.
Mm-hmm. Drew?
Eric, you mentioned being inspired by music at a somewhat young age. What kind of music and what was inspiring you?
Well, first of all, I had a lot of friends that had older siblings. I had older cousins that turned me on. I grew up, I'm 62. I grew up in the progressive era. So I was really like the Moody Blues, Pink Floyd, Genesis. Really was just drawn to the fact that those bands were saying some really interesting things lyrically, but the music was both dissonant and melodic. And I really enjoyed that dichotomy.
Well, what does that teach you about running a business?
It's many things in business are gray. It's not black and white. Although I think you have to make timely decisions, succeed fast, fail fast. But it taught me that. Use both sides of your brain as best you can.
Mm-hmm. Matthew?
Eric, you've described yourself as intellectually curious to us. How young were you when you knew you were an intellectually curious guy?
Again, ever since I can remember. I had an aunt that gave me this book when I was super young called Tell Me Why. And it had just a boatload of, tell me why milk gets stale. Tell me why cows give milk, or some just tell me whys. I just remember just reading that and being fascinated with that.
So how'd you feed your
authors? Just, as I grew up, just really getting turned on some great authors, John Updike, Russell.
Who helped feed your intellectual curiosity as you were growing up?
I would say my grandfather, believe it or not, who was a mechanic and not formally educated. And I had great uncles, my mom's fraternal twin, and her older brother, who was an attorney.
And tell me, what's that intellectual? Do you still have that intellectual curiosity? And what's that got to do with what you're doing today?
Absolutely, it does. I've never stopped it. I learned from my father-in-law, who passed away at 93, and I watched him in his 90s still being intellectually curious and how vibrant he was intellectually. And I just always had that mindset. Work-wise,
what's that have to do with your being the CEO of Energage?
Yeah, I was just going there, Herb. Work-wise, I think you need to always be looking at, can we be doing things better? You can't just always take the status quo.
How'd you get a job at this company called Energage?
I was brought in by venture capital. Last 3 companies I've been brought in by venture capital.
So you're a professional CEO, and you wouldn't have been brought in by 3 different times by 3 different venture capital firms unless you really understood how to build a business. What's your secret?
Employees matter. Every voice matters. And from a leadership perspective, it's collaboration.
How young were you when you realized this? How young were you when you realized this, that it was all about the people?
Very young from sports. I was a point guard in basketball. You had to orchestrate the team. The team had to be united and one to be successful. So through sports, very young, and just the dichotomy of friends and seeing all the different aspects of friends and trying to bring elements from each and make the composite better.
Shannon?
Eric, tell us about your parents and what they were like when you were growing up.
Super loving family, hardworking. My father worked for a truck company, Candimac Truck Company, and was a parts manager. Worked 5.5 days every week and every night, including Sunday nights. Hardworking. My mother stayed at home with us when we were in high school, and then was a receptionist at a dentist office, local dentist office, as she got a super smart woman, not formally educated.
So Eric, when you talk about your parents, it really sounds like you respect them. What does respect have to do with business today?
Absolutely a pillar. Like I said, what Energage brings to the market is that every employee's voice matters. We have technology that allows that to happen, especially in a remote work environment. Every employee's voice matters. So you may not be able to accommodate and every employee's request, but you have to give them the voice and then go back to them as leadership team and tell them why some things can't be accomplished.
Frank?
Eric, you told us that growing up in Runnymede, there were many factions of kids and that you helped distinguish yourself by playing sports. Can you tell us about that experience?
Sports was just one of my outlets, Frank. I loved sports. I love sports to this day. I love golf. I love competition. But sports through basketball and baseball was great. But I also was on the chess team and met people like that. And I also dabbled in with kind of the more hippie-ish people in the 70s that were hanging out by the lake, probably doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, but learned from all those factions.
So what did you learn about yourself with all those different roles?
I learned that I was an independent thinker, that I could look at things objectively and see things that I thought would benefit me versus those that won't. And I was also very fortunate, and I thank my parents for this, that they always were pretty liberal except for mandatory curfew. And my father was militant about the fact if I was not back at the time he told me to be back, that I would be penalized. Saved me growing up.
Pat?
You had this theme coming up throughout the interview that you used to question. You've always questioned everything. How young were you when you first started doing that?
Pat, is again, just like it seems like it was always there. I just always, as a young person, I saw the dichotomy between Runnymede as a community, which is the South Jersey area I grew up in, and some of the differences that, like my older uncle how he was living. He had 55 acres in Bucks County. He was a lawyer. Saw that dichotomy.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey?
Eric, do you have children?
Yes, I have 3 children.
What have you learned from your kids that you take to work every day?
That they are independent, beautiful, thinking people. They think for themselves. They challenge things similar to what I did. My 2 girls are out of the home. One's a geologist for Chevron. The other's a teacher up in Manhattan. My son's an architect.
Matthew?
Eric, I'm struck by this contradiction in you because you're this intellectually curious guy. You talk about being an independent thinker and questioning everything. Clearly, it's important in leadership to be able to make decisions. But when Herb asks you the secret sauce, you just keep talking about employees and employees' voices. I don't get it. Fit those two things together.
That's one element of having a successful organization is making sure leadership is aligned with their employees. That's what I'm focused on. As a leadership team, I'm about a collaborative environment where every leader has their voice, and we try to get to agree on where we're driving the company or disagree and commit.
Disagree and commit. What do you mean?
Yeah, sometimes when you're driving on strategy, we have 8 leaders on our team, and if 6 are in agreement and 2 aren't, the 2 that aren't have to disagree and commit. We're not always going to 100% agree on things.
Mm-hmm. So you're all about everybody, getting on the same page, even though sometimes some folks may not agree, including you. It's like, even though you may not agree, you got to do it anyway in order for to benefit the team. It's all about
I agree with that. And as CEO, I don't take my vote greater than those of my leadership team. I am one of 8. I try to drive my agenda. I try to persuade if I think my agenda is correct, but I am open to change. And if I get overruled, I've been overruled. I'm okay with that. But again, I will say this tenet: you have to agree to succeed fast or fail fast.
What's the website address for this organization known as Energage?
Energage.com.
How do you spell that?
ENERGAGE.
.com. We've been speaking with Eric Rubino, CEO of Energage, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. We're back in a moment, right after this quick break. Don't go away.
Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure.
Back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, and we'd like to introduce Christian Hoyt, president of PayUSA. Christian, what is PayUSA? What are you guys doing?
We're a local payroll service provider. Our model is going to change into human capital management.
Mm-hmm. And how large or how small? How many clients you guys have?
We have 1,200 clients in the Delaware Valley and 12 employees. 1,200
clients, 12 employees. And Frank, you're next.
Christian, I'm wondering, how young were you when you first started making money?
So my first job was when I was 13, washing dishes and making orange juice for a restaurant up in the summer.
Orange juice? How'd you get started in orange juice?
They just needed it was a job no one wanted, and I like orange juice anyway, so I thought it was a lot of fun. I remember that I was so good at that, they'd have to tell me to stop making orange juice because not that many people wanted as much orange juice as I was making.
So you're not afraid to do stuff that other people don't want to do, and you're also pretty obsessive about doing it once you get started. Is that true?
I would say for sure that's a good idea.
How's that helped build this organization, PayUSA, the fact that you're willing to do whatever it takes and do it with passion?
I think when you're involved with your own business, you have to be, dedicated like that. Otherwise, it's not going to succeed. So when I was really young, it was really important to be just always there.
Drew?
You started a business at a young age. I think it was called College Construction. What did you learn from that experience?
I learned a lot, actually, because I wasn't the best businessman at that point. We actually, one summer, we grossed $15,000, and I think it made about $500. So you learn a lot by, trying to manage employees. In fact, I had more employees then than I have now. But I wasn't very good at managing them, and I wasn't very good at, bidding things, stuff like that.
And what was the impact? What do you bring today to work that you learned back then?
That a lot of the stuff that it's helpful to do a lot of the things that you're asking other people to do first, without just asking them to do it without you knowing anything about it.
Yeah. Jeffrey?
In terms of dedication and drive, I remember you saying something about your mom really, really pushed you. Tell us about your mom and what you take from mom to work every day.
Yeah, my mom was very focused on education, and she really pushed us to succeed. My family, we were all kind of compelled to go to good colleges and do well in school. And while that was very frustrating growing up as a young person when you were never good enough, it does push you, drive you, and gives you the focus to recognize that education is the secret to getting where you want to go.
As a leader of this firm, what is she whispering in your ear when you're facing a tough decision?
Just keep moving forward, because that's what she always did. I remember when she unfortunately died of cancer when she was 70, and her regret was just not another day, just one more day to see the grandchildren, to see everybody. And so, appreciate what you have.
Matthew?
Yeah, Christian, how long did that dishwasher / making orange juice job last?
So it lasted a couple of years, and then my third season, one of the chefs came in, and he was not in the right frame of mind, and he decided to send me out in the front of the restaurant, on the street, and at 6:30 in the morning, and try to solicit business, which is an unusual thing to do for a restaurant. And a local carpenter came by, and he said, you want to do something different. And that got me started in the kind of odd jobs realm, and got me out of the restaurant business, which I'm totally
So wait a minute, did you jump right from the dishwasher and orange juice job to the odd job / construction job?
Yeah, so he hired me, and I went out and started working as a carpenter's apprentice within the week, because I was like, get to work outside. It was wonderful. Of course, I had a bike 14 miles each way, but I didn't care.
Was that like a scary thing when you were making the switch from one to the other? I mean, how do you just, what does that tell us about you, that you just dropped one and moved on to the other job like that?
Well, I think it was a better opportunity. Let me take it that way. So it wasn't that hard to make that decision. But I do think it's something I'm about taking risks that served me well in some cases. I've been fortunate to have a CEO that makes sure I don't take too many risks.
Mm-hmm. Pat?
I need to have.
What was it like growing up with a father that was a business owner?
It was wonderful. First of all, it really built an entrepreneurial spirit in me. But, he came to all my sporting events. Even my first wrestling match in college, he drove 8 hours, came to the wrestling match, and then went back. And I'm like, it's wonderful. Obviously, I had that loyalty as a father, but also that he had the free time to be able to do that.
And what does that mean to you?
Well, I was able to go see all my children participate in all their sports. And what it means is just there's a little bit of freedom that you can modify, put family first while also having a career.
Mm-hmm. Shannon?
Christian, you mentioned your kids. What have they taught you that has helped make you a better president at PayUSA?
I think that one of the things that's interesting, they're twins, but they were born very prematurely. They were both born less than 2 pounds. And so my one son has struggled with he has mild cerebral palsy. So it's been interesting to see the dynamic between the two of them, and, how much that one that actually has the slight disability really pushes and is so much more, to a certain extent, dedicated than his other brother who has no problems.
And how's that affecting you? How's that affecting your building this business?
I think business is about, commitment and loyalty and dedication. And it's fun to see those traits in your children. If it's only one of them right now, but I'm hoping the other one will come
Frank?
around.
So, Christian, At PayUSA, you're running a second-generation family business. I'm curious, do your clients stay with you for a long time?
Yeah, we've been fortunate to have very loyal clients. In fact, our first client, one of my first clients my father picked up in 1969, is still a client to this day.
Whoa, time out. 1969, your first client, and they're still with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity.
Why do clients stay? What does that say about you and your firm?
I think one of the things that works well for us as a firm is that you're able to talk to my staff or communicate with me at any point. Communication is always what I think the most important part of a successful service business.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey?
So why go work for a family business where you could get a job with IBM or Honeywell or Lockheed Martin? Why go into this family business, Christian, at the beginning of your career?
Well, I was actually going to be a history teacher. That's my first love. But my father was having problems, and I was the only child that was, sucker enough to join him at the time. And as soon as I got in, I fell in love. So,
what are you most proud of that you've created in this enterprise?
One of the things I think is great is that my father's 90, and it's fun to be able to have something kind of live on for him and provide for him, so that he has like a lifelong pension. That was my buyout contract with him, and so he's just lived a comfortably retirement without having to worry about anything, and that makes me proud.
Mm-hmm. Earlier, you mentioned that you have a CEO that grounds you and that you're an idea guy. How young were you when you started coming up with ideas? How young?
Well, it's interesting. When I first started, I had all these different ideas, and it was just my father and myself. And it wasn't until we hired this woman in 1995 that it really helped, because you needed a differing voice in the room. My father and I always saw eye to eye, but that was not always the best business model. You need someone that's going to say, yeah, not so much. And in most cases, more times than not, she's right and I'm wrong. But if it wasn't for me, we would never do anything. So it's this great symbiotic relationship that we enjoy.
So you really appreciate other energy. You don't have to be the smartest guy on the team. You like having the different folks around you, the different opinions?
Yeah, well, she wanted the corner office. I gave it to her. So
wait a minute. It says here you're the president and you don't have the corner office?
No, and yeah, she's not. I mean, she's just the COO. So, but she wanted that, and that was more important, and that was not important to me. To me, having employees that are happy, having a happy workplace is what matters. And I don't care that much about a nice office or anything like that. That's not
so you're willing to make sacrifices as the boss for the team.
Absolutely. That's how you have a successful team.
What are you talking about? Tell me more about this.
Well, I think I heard recently that your company is as good as your unhappiest employee. So, if you have all happy employees and that people that enjoy coming to work, then that's reflected with your staff and with your clients. And that's how you keep clients for 50 plus years.
Wow. And I'm not arguing with you, because you've managed to keep clients for 50 plus years and you've got 1,200 clients and you're growing. You're doing something right. What's the website address of your organization known as PayUSA?
It's PayUSA.com.
We've been speaking with Christian Hoyt, president of PayUSA, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Jeffrey, could you give us a rundown of who we've had the opportunity of hanging out and interviewing today?
What a great show, Herb. We had Tiffany Wilson, president and CEO of University City Science Center, Ben Drummond, CEO of D2 Integrated Solutions, Eric Rubino, CEO of Energage, and just now Christian Hoyt, president of PayUSA.
I would like to thank my wonderful co-hosts, including Jeff Mack from Newmark Knight Frank, Shannon Lane from Newmark Knight Frank, Drew Hanlon, Pat Riley, USI, Frank Hennessy, Premier Planning, and Matthew Shapiro from Obermeyer, for giving me a hand structuring the questions, hopefully providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show, I hope. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com. That's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.